He silently endured all the hardships. So he practiced strict penance, severe penance for 12 years, and he silently tolerated all the hardships. At last, he obtained, after this strict penance of 12 years and after tolerating all the hardships, finally he obtained the supreme knowledge. He subdued his desires and became Jina, or the conqueror. He managed to suppress his desires, he conquered his desires, and that is why he came to be known as Jina, or the conqueror. His followers came to be known Jinas or Jains. So he was called Jina, or the conqueror of his desires, and his followers came to be known as Jinas or Jains, that is, those who have conquered their desires. Then preachings of Mahavira. After becoming the Jina, Mahavira spent his life in preaching. He gave his first sermon, this is important, he gave his first sermon at Mount Vipul, situated at Rajgriha, the capital of Magad. He was now a Kevalin, that is all knowing, or Lord Mahavira. So after he gave his first sermon at Mount Vipul in Rajgriha, he came to be known as Kevalin, that is all knowing, or Lord Mahavira. He had a large number of followers. He preached at various centers like Avanti, Koshala, Anga, Mithila, Champa, Videha and Vaishali. Lord Mahavira attained salvation at the age of 72 at Pavapuri in Bihar. So he finally attained salvation at the age of 72 at Pavapuri in Bihar. At the time of his death, he had about 14,000 followers. Then main teachings of Jainism. Jainism did not accept the authority of the Vedas. So Jainism did not accept Vedas authority. Jainism preaches 5 vows. It had its own way of teaching. It had its own principles. So the Jainism preached these 5 vows. It is said that only the 5th vow was added by Mahavira. So what were those 5 vows? Again, this is very important. The 5 vows. A Jain householder has to take the following vows. So what are they? First is ahimsa, that is non-violence. Second is asatya, not stealing. Satya, not telling a lie. Then aparigraha, not possessing property. One should not possess property. Brahmacharya, that is practicing chastity or purity. So these are the 5 vows every Jain householder should follow. Non-injury to living beings, especially to humans, animals, plants and insects, is important in Jain philosophy, which is again a part of non-violence. According to Mahavira, violence is of 3 kinds. Physical violence, like killing, causing injury or pain. Violence in words or harsh language. If we speak some harsh language also, that is, we are causing violence in words. And mental violence, like ill will towards others. And if we have some kind of ill will towards others, then that is the mental violence we are causing to others. So these are the 3 kinds of violence described by Mahavira, that is physical violence, violence in words and mental violence. Jains believed in the sanctity of life, or the right of every living being to live. So according to Jain, every individual, every living being has the right to live. These doctrines came to be regarded as 5 vows which every Jain is supposed to take. Then 9 truths. Again, this is important, these 9 truths. Beside the 5 vows and other general doctrines of Jainism, Jains are expected to have the knowledge of 9 truths. According to Jain philosophy, the knowledge of these 9 truths is essential, and only renunciation is the shortest way to salvation. So following these 9 truths is essential, and the only renunciation, that is the shortest way to salvation, means freedom from the cycle of birth and death, that is salvation. So what are these 9 truths? They are the Jiva, living things; Ajiva, non-living things; Punya, result of good deeds; Pap, that is sin; Ashraf, good deeds; Sanvar, hindrances in the way of karma, that is obstacle in the way of karma; Bandha, bondage; Nirjara, destruction of karmas; and Moksha, salvation. So finally there is Moksha, it is salvation. So these are the 9 truths. Then doctrines of Jainism. 3 Ratnas. Mahavira preached that the ultimate goal of man is to attain freedom from worldly bonds. As I have already told you, that salvation, that is moksha, it is the freedom from the cycle of birth and death. So that is the ultimate goal of every man. That should be the ultimate goal of every man according to Mahavira. It can be obtained by following three ratnas or three jewels. So how salvation can be attained? By following these three jewels or three ratnas. What are they? That is right faith, right knowledge and right conduct. These three jewels inspire a true Jain to have faith in the 24 Tirthankaras, literally those who guide men and women across the river of existence. So these Tirthankaras, they are actually the people who guide men and women across the river of existence of life, how life should be lived. So that path is led by these Tirthankaras to acquire knowledge from their sermons, to acquire knowledge from their teachings and to lead a good life. The next is karma. The Jains believe in the karma theory of Hinduism, and that one should be responsible for one's own karma or actions. A person, this karma, this philosophy of karma is also there in Hinduism. So Jains also believe in the same philosophy, that is the theory of karma, where one should be responsible for one's own actions. Good deeds alone liberate a man from the cycle of life and death. So if a person has good deeds, then it will liberate him or give him freedom from the cycle of birth and death. That means he can attain salvation from good deeds. Then equality. Mahavira laid stress on equality between men and women, as well as between on equality between men and women, as well as between men and women. He praised universal brotherhood. He considered all men equal irrespective of their caste or creed. So he said that all men and women are also equal, all castes are also equal. So he considered all men equal irrespective of their caste or creed also. Mahavira believed that the virtuous deeds could achieve ultimate salvation or nirvana. So already we studied in karma theory that one person's good deeds can help him attain salvation. All living beings, from the tiny insect to the highest form of life, should be shown compassion, means love. From a tiny insect to the highest form of life, everybody should be shown compassion. Then eternal soul. Mahavira believed in the immortality of the soul, that is Atma, means the soul never dies. Immortality means never dies. He said that the body dies but not the soul. Then salvation. Like the Hindus, Jains believe in moksha or salvation or freedom from the cycle of births and rebirths. This can be achieved only by leading an austere life, a very true pure life based on non-violence and self-denial. Self-denial is denying of one's desires. To attain salvation, it is necessary to practice the three ratnas of right faith, right knowledge and right action. So already we studied that these are the three jewels of Jainism, and one can attain salvation by practicing these three jewels or three ratnas, that is right faith, right knowledge and right action. Then belief in penance. Jains believed in penance, that is living a very strict and severe hardships of the life. To die of starvation, called santhara or salekhana, was considered a virtue. So their penance was so strict that they believed in dying of starvation, and they called it as santhara or salekhana, and it was considered as a virtue in Jainism. Jainism lays so much stress on severe penance that very few people could lead such an austere life. Very few people can live such a strict, hard life filled with so many hardships. This explains why Jainism had few followers. Because of these hardships that Jainism asked the people to follow, that is why Jainism had very few followers. The spread of Jainism. Jainism had royal patronage. Therefore, it spread easily around Koshala, Magadha. Royal patronage means the kings, they used to patronize Jainism. So it was easily spread around Koshala, Magadha, Mithila and Champa. And other parts of the country. So these were the places in India where Jainism spread it. Lord Mahavira founded monasteries headed by learned munis. Those are called sages. The munis, they were the sages. So Lord Mahavira founded many monasteries headed by these munis. They lived an austere life, very strict life, to give an example to the people to follow. In the western parts of India, Jainism was patronized by business community. In Western India, Jainism was patronized by business community people. In South India, Jainism was patronized by Rashtrakuta and Chalukya kings. Later, Jainism became a dominant religion in Karnataka. Jainism spread to Odisha, Rajasthan and Gujarat also. So these were the regions in India where Jainism went on spreading. Causes of the spread of Jainism. First is local dialect. Why Jainism spreaded in all these places? First is the local dialect. Already we studied that Sanskrit in Hinduism, Sanskrit was the common language which was difficult for the common people to follow. But Mahavira adopted the language of the common people. He did not preach in Sanskrit, he preached in Prakrit. That was the common language of the common people instead of Sanskrit to preach his doctrines. So it became very simple for the common people to follow. Later, the monks followed the same practice. People found it easier to follow the preachings of Jainism in the local language. Then, next is royal patronage. Already we studied Jainism was being patronized by the king, so that was another reason why people started to follow. Jainism received royal patronage. Chandragupta Maurya is said to have been converted to Jainism in the later years of his rule. In the 5th century AD, Chalukyas and Rashtrakutas also patronized Jainism. We studied that in South India, Rashtrakutas and Chalukyas they patronized Jainism. Kharvela, the ruler of Kalinga, that is Odisha, helped in the spread of Jainism in eastern India. So since kings started to follow Jainism, that is why this was also another reason why people also started to follow Jainism. Then saints. There were many devout Jain saints like Kalkacharya who lived in Ujjain and made it a center of Jainism. Another Jain saint Bhadrabahu took Jainism to Karnataka. So there were the efforts also made by these Jain saints in spreading Jainism far and wide. Appeal to people. People found the religion attractive as it was based on austerity, simplicity, and spirituality. There was no casteism, no kind of animal sacrifice. It was very simple, taught in very simple language, common language. That is why this religion attracted the people. There were no animal sacrifices, nor was there any class distinction. Then the division into two sects. So later on Jainism got divided into two sects, that is Shvetambaras and Digambaras. During the time when Bhadrabahu took Jainism to Karnataka, there arose differences between him and Sthulabhadra, who was based in Magad. So Bhadrabahu took Jainism to Karnataka and Sthulabhadra, who was in Magad. So there was the conflict between these two Jain saints. In the first Jain council held around 300 BC, these differences came to surface. As a result, Jains were divided into two groups. So because of Bhadrabahu and Sthulabhadra, because of their differences, this Jainism got divided into two groups. One is Svetambara, or the white clads were led by Sthulabhadra. They remained in Magad. They wore white cloths. So in the beginning we studied that this Bhadrabahu took Jainism to Karnataka and the remaining they stayed in Magad. So in Magad it was led by Sthulabhadra. So they wore white cloths and that is why they call them as Shvetambaras or the white clad, and covered their faces with a small white cloth to avoid killing the tiniest of insects or germs that might enter the nose while breathing. They fasted, but they did not believe in extreme penance and austerity. So this group, the Svetambara, this group, they fasted, but they did not lead a very austere, very strict penance. They did not live all kind of hardships of life. It was a simple kind of group. Then the next is Digambaras, followed Bhadrabahu. They were sky clad and did not believe in covering their bodies. According to Digambaras, living without clothes signified detachment from the worldly pleasures. Means they are suppressing their desire. They are detaching them from the materialistic world. According to them, one could avoid killing life forms by not wearing clothes, because while washing clothes, many germs would get killed. So this was the belief of Digambaras. They were orthodox followers. They were very traditional followers of Mahavira. They kept long fasts and led an austere life. So this is the difference between these two groups. They did not believe in extreme penance and austerity, but Digambaras believed in extreme penance and austerity. Then impact of Jainism. First is political impact. In early stages, its success was more remarkable than that of the Buddhism. In the early stages of Jainism, it became very much remarkable. The religion became very much remarkable. The religion spreaded far and wide in comparison to Buddhism. However, it was mainly the Kshatriyas who took to this new faith. As a result, they lost their warlike instincts. So, since we already studied that the princes, the Kshatriyas, they started to adopt this religion, that is why they lost their warlike instincts, because the religion preached completely non-violence. It is one of the reasons why Jains did not try to build any political empire of their own. The social and religious impact. Jainism discarded the system of casteism. Jainism discarded means Jainism completely banned, abolished the system of casteism, shunned rituals, rejected all kind of expensive, unnecessary rituals, and encouraged social service. Language and literature. Jain scholars have made an important contribution in literature field. The Jain texts were written in Prakrit, but at some places these texts were written in the local languages. They were finally compiled, means collected in the 6th century AD at Vallabhi in Gujarat. The Angas, the 12 books containing the teachings of Mahavira, already we studied about these books. The Angas, the 12 books containing the teachings of Mahavira, are a great source of knowledge. The Mahapurana, composed by Jinasena, Kalpasutra compiled by Bhadrabahu, and Ratna Malika by Rashtrakuta ruler Amogha Varsha are outstanding literary works. So these are some of the examples of literary works. Jain literature is in Ardha Magadhi and Prakrit dialects. It highlights the values of ahimsa, that is non-violence. From the writings of the Jains, the history of India, especially from the 6th to 4th century BC, can be reconstructed. So if one studies this Jain literature, one can construct the history of India from 6th century to 4th century BC. Then art and architecture. Jains constructed temples and monasteries. Jain relics are found in Khandagiri. Jain relics means the remainings of these Jains. They are found in Khandagiri and Udayagiri caves in Odisha. Jains have constructed hundreds of dharmashalas, opened several orphanages, and supported many charitable institutions. So these were the social services done by Jainism. The gigantic structure, the huge structure of Bahubali, Gomateshwara at Shravana Belagola and at Karkala in Karnataka are good examples of Jain art and architecture. The Dilwara temples at Mount Abu in Rajasthan, the picture is given over here, and at Ranakpur near Jodhpur, and the Jain tower at Chittor are famous for Jain architecture. The most famous Jain holy place is Palitana in Gujarat, which has more than 800 temples. This is the most famous Jain holy place, that is in Palitana in Gujarat, where you can find more than 800 Jain temples. Then decline of Jainism. Why Jainism began to decline? Jainism preached rigid austerity. Already we studied from the beginning of Jainism that it was a very strict religion. It told people to follow this severe penance. So because of this rigid austerity, it rose at a time when Buddhism also existed. And since Jainism and Buddhism they existed in almost same time period, so the theory of ahimsa was extended even to wearing of clothes. These factors prevented it from getting popular support. So because of this rigid austerity, because of this theory of ahimsa that was extended even to wearing of clothes, because of all these things, Jainism started to decline. The religion did not spread to foreign countries. It did not have any missionary effort. So Jainism did not make any kind of missionary effort to spread it to foreign countries. That was made by Buddhism. Buddhism sent missionaries to other countries to spread the religion. That was not done by Jainism. Jainism did not get royal patronage from contemporary rulers. So contemporary rulers means the rulers that came after suppose Chandragupta Maurya, or after in the Rashtrakutas, after the Chalukya kings, those who came, they did not follow Jainism. In contrast, Buddhism received a large-scale support from Ashoka, Harsha and Kanishka. So the contemporary rulers, they did not follow Jainism, rather they followed Buddhism. Though Jainism advocated equality of men, it did not do away totally with the high and low positions in the society. So Jainism, it rejected casteism, it rejected the caste system, but it did not do anything to reduce the high and low positions in the society. During the Gupta period and in later years, Hinduism once again became popular. Therefore, Jainism remained restricted to a few pockets in the country. Then next is Buddhism. Buddhism catered to religious striving of the time. It was a midway between Hinduism and Buddhism. So Buddhism is considered as midway between Hinduism and Jainism. Buddhism presented the ascetic traditions to Indian society. It had more followers abroad than in India. Buddhism is one of the imprints that India has left on other civilizations. So it is kind of a footprint that India has left on other civilizations, because Buddhism has more followers in abroad also. That so it is considered as a kind of imprint or footprint that the Buddhism has that India has left on other civilizations. The background and causes for the rise of Jainism and Buddhism have already been presented. So the causes we have already studied, the causes for the rise of Jainism and Buddhism. Now we will study about the life of Gautam Buddha, the founder of Buddhism. Gautam Buddha was the founder of Buddhism. He belonged to the Kshatriya clan of Shakya. According to one legend, he was born in 563 BC at Lumbini near Kapilavastu in Nepal. His childhood name was Siddhartha. His father Sudhodana was the ruler of Kapilavastu. Like Mahavira, he was inclined from his childhood towards spiritual pursuits. So he was also, like Mahavira, was very much inclined to spiritualism. Gautam Buddha was also very much inclined to spiritualism from his childhood. All the royal luxuries in which Gautama lived had no effect on him. He never liked the royal luxuries of his palace. He was married at a young age to a princess called Yashodhara and had a son named Rahul. The Great Renunciation, this is the most important event in Gautam Buddha's life, that is the Great Renunciation. Once Gautama's charioteer was driving him through the town, the appearance of an old man. So once Gautam Buddha went out to see the town, so there he saw the four sights. What were those four sights? One is the old man bent with age. Another was the sight of a sick man groaning with pain. Then another was the dead body of a man being carried for a cremation. Made Gautama think about man's destiny. He was consoled when he saw an ascetic in search of salvation. So these are the four sights that he saw, and that came to be known as the four great sights. That is the sight of an old man, the sight of a sick man, the sight of a dead man, and an ascetic who was wandering here and there in search of salvation. So these are the four sights that changed the life of Gautam Buddha. That is why it is called as four great sights. Gautama left home, his wife and the child in order to find a solution. So he wanted to find the solution of all these problems of life. So that is why he left home, and he left his family in order to find a solution. This event is known as Mahavishkramamana, or the Great Renunciation. So the event when the particular period when he left his family in order to find a solution, that event is known as Mahavishkramana, or the Great Renunciation. Enlightenment. After leaving home in search of truth, Gautama wandered from place to place. He roamed here and there from place to place. For some time, he studied under renowned teachers of Rajgriha and then went to Gaya. He practiced severe penance and led a life of extreme austerity. He also practiced severe penance like Mahavira and led a life of extreme austerity. Finally, at the age of 35, Gautama attained enlightenment at both Gaya and Bihar. From then onwards, he began to be called as the Buddha, or the Enlightened One. Dharma Chakra Pravartana. This is another important event. At the place where Buddha got enlightenment, a temple known as Mahabodhi temple was constructed later. That particular place where he got enlightenment, so there today this temple stands, that is Mahabodhi temple. The people tree is now referred to as the Mahabodhi tree. The people tree was the tree under which he got enlightenment. So that tree now is referred to as Mahabodhi tree. Buddha was also called the Tathagat, the founder of truth. After the enlightenment, he embarked on preaching his religion. He started to preach his religion. He delivered his first sermon, he delivered his first teaching at the Deer Park at Sarnath near Varanasi in the presence of ascetics. This event is in the history of Buddha is known as Dharma Chakra Pravartana, or the turning of the wheel of sacred law. This is very much important event, Dharmachakra Pravartana, or the turning of the wheel of sacred law. This was the event when he gave his first sermon. Buddha's fame spread far and wide. For another 40 years, he traveled all over the country spreading his message. He established a Bodh Sangha, that is the Buddhist order, at Magadha. He had a large number of followers, including the rulers of Magad, Koshala, Kosambhi. His disciples were from all classes of society, means higher class, lower class, everybody were his disciples. Gautam Buddha in his last years went to Kushinagar, which is near Gorakhpur district in Uttar Pradesh. He obtained Mahaparinirvana at the age of 80 in 483 BC at Kushinagar. That means he died at the age of 80 in 483 BC at Kushinagar. His disciples took his sacred remains to 8 different places. Those are the relics of Gautam Buddha. The sacred remains were the relics of Gautam Buddha, and his disciples stored them in these huge mounds called stupas. So these stupas were constructed to store these sacred remains or the relics of Gautam Buddha.